presentations as PDFs afterwards on our homepage. ITS Norway is a member organization working for intelligent transport systems, and we do kind of these seminars or webinars nowadays quite often to highlight and to go deep dive into matters. So today, CITS is high on the agenda, and we will hear from experts and go a little bit deeper into some of the topics, also from a European level. Now, if you have questions, please use the chat. And please turn off your camera and unmute. And I know this is all familiar to you, but we still have to make a remind you about that. In case you would like to ask the question live, that's not a problem. Please turn on your camera, unmute, and raise the question. But without much ado, we will go straight into the program, and we will hear from Gert van den Linden. So please, Gert, welcome, and please share your presentation.
Thank you very much, Jenny. Good morning, all. I'm glad to be here in this second session organized by ITS Norway. I have, I think, slightly too many slides prepared, so I'll try to go through them quickly. First of all, of course, the newest that we published is the Sustainable and Smart Mobility Strategy. I'm sure you've all seen that. We have identified 10 flagships in there, 5 on the sustainable part and 5 on the smart part. And today I will talk a little bit more on actions under the 4 of the 5 smart flagships, which have links with the topic of today being CITS and CCAM. And before you start worrying about too many Brussels acronyms, I will explain what those are. In fact, I will go a little bit down memory lane and explain how we switched acronyms basically from CITS to CCAM, and go a little bit more on what we are still doing today on CITS. And of course, you will see that I refer to many of the topics that will be addressed in more detail by the other speakers that come after me. So quickly, I know the topic is smart, but I quickly wanted to have one slide on the sustainable mobility just to show that we have some very concrete targets there. So for 2030, for example, you see 30 million zero emission vehicles on the road, and the same for 80,000 lorries in operation. I will not read everything, you can see it yourself, but so we have clear targets both on the vehicle side and the infrastructure side, and on the number of cities that we expect to become climate neutral. Switching to the smart part, the biggest targets there we have by 2030 that we want to have a seamless multi-mobility passenger transport, facilitated also by integrated electronic ticketing. And we want to invest heavily on automated mobility, which is of course part of the topic today. And we will continue investing in the infrastructure, so a multimodal 10T network where high-speed connectivity is going to play a role, both in the core and the comprehensive network. I'll be very quick on this one. You will know that we are revising the ITS directive as well as the delegated regulations on real-time traffic information and multimodal traffic information services. And we've announced an additional initiative to touch on the market issues related to multimodal services. That is, of course, ongoing work. We have also, we are very well advanced in the preparations of a new EU partnership on CCAM. The inter-service consultation, that's internal commission speak, will be launched any day now, and we hope to sign the memorandum of understanding in just before the summer. Now, this partnership builds on everything that we're going to discuss about today on CITS, and it will use that to help develop more user-oriented and well-integrated mobility services, which actually the goal is to provide a viable alternative for the dominant private vehicle ownership we see today to make transport as a whole more efficient. That also means that we will launch under Horizon Europe a new dedicated set of calls for 2021-2022. We've already earmarked 162 million euros on that. You might also have noticed we've talk about a European mobility data space. This is, of course, a concept introduced first by horizontal rules by DigiConnect within the Commission. But now the vertical knowledge on mobility is in the hands of DG Move, and we will try to make that more concrete. Of course, it will build on the many existing data sources in transport, many of which are already regulated, and we will try to link those and combine it into one mobility data space. Of course, one of the big building blocks will be that we've also launched a coordination mechanism for the existing NAPs. So that is across all member states, across all the different data types. And there's different NAPs for different data types. We want to coordinate all those efforts and start indeed building one data space. There is also ongoing a revision of the 10T regulation, where the ambition is to make transport, and therefore also the transport infrastructure, greener, smarter, and more resilient. That means also specifically for today that the smartness, the digital dimension of the infrastructure will only gain in importance. And on top of that, we're also revising the eCall legislation. There are there's a couple of topics. We need to advance the specifications to the newest standards. We also need to deal with the legacy issue, because what happens with existing vehicles when there is no longer 2G or 3G coverage. And we're looking into extending eCall to other vehicle types. Now, that was a little overview of all the different, let's say, new initiatives, but how does it all match with what we've been doing so far, and what about all those acronyms? We started back in 2014 with the CITS platform, so the Cooperative Intelligent Transport Systems. A major milestone, you will hear about this later on, I cannot emphasize this enough, came in 2016 when we launched the C-Roads platform. That has been instrumental in developing the necessary specifications, and I'm glad to say that in 2019 we reached the target that we set ourselves of deploying the day one services. Of course, the work continues. In parallel, we had colleagues working on connectivity in a more general manner, in deploying 5G, and we had colleagues working on automated vehicles. Now, we realized that all these three evolutions really need to come together. That is what this slide shows. And also in the Commission, where the CITS platform stopped and we launched instead the CCAM platform. But the big difference is that was an initiative supported by all the DGs working on the file. And so we're working on to a more sustainable and smart, more intelligent mobility by connecting all road users. And everything I said so far builds onto that. So when I say we reinforce the infrastructure, many initiatives such as the revision of the ITS directive, they all point towards building this digital road infrastructure. Of course, we've also launched, we're preparing, I should say, this new EU partnership, which will bring all these things together. So in the past, we had in Horizon 2020 focusing on automated vehicles, but now we're really looking into the integrated approach. So specifically for today, I would like to focus your attention on cluster 4 in the illustration you see here, where it says integrating the vehicle in the transport system. That is what connectivity and cooperative systems and CITS are all about, making sure that these vehicles integrate better, talk to the infrastructure, make everything more smooth, efficient, and safe. Now, specifically for CITS, what are we doing today? Well, I see 3 pillars that CITS deployment always needed. The first one is we need interoperability. Of course, that means we need rules on how we communicate to each other so that we can actually communicate, and we need rules on what we communicate. The first means we have to talk technologies. The second means we have to harmonize services. In both of these things, of course, the C-Roads platform has been instrumental. Of course, we also had a proposed legislation on that. That in the end didn't enter into force. But of course, the work still continues. More services are being harmonized every day, and I look forward to Martin's presentation on that. The second part is CITS needs trust. when all road users have to trust each other, we need a specific mechanism to ensure that. What the Commission has done is two things. We've established a new subgroup under the ITS expert group to discuss these matters and to continue evolving the security and certificate policy. And we've set up a pilot together with the DGGRC to actually implement this security credential management system. And we will also hear more about that in the second part of today's seminar. And finally, CITS needs scale. This system becomes ever more effective as more users participate and join in. Now, today, we have approximately 500,000 vehicles on the road, something actually that is also recognized by Euro NCAP, and they've given this the first advanced reward in 6 years. At the same time, you can see on the map in the green all the deployment areas already, all the different member states that have already, through C-Roads and the CEF support, deployed CITS. Now, of course, this needs to grow further, but the message is it started. We set out 2019, and it has started. We can build on that. We need to build on that because it will make transport safer. It will make it more efficient, and it will prepare for the next steps in automated vehicles. So to conclude, we need to continue agreeing on how to coordinate our approach, because investment levels are high, and it only works if we all go towards in the same direction. That also means that we will continue linking both the development and the deployment activities. I highlighted that we have a new partnership under Horizon Europe, but we will also continue to fund project with the CEF instrument. And we need to continue looking for no regret measures, because we're confident that such measures are possible, that we can formulate recommendations, but we still need to work on that to trigger EU-wide investments. Specifically for today, of course, a good no regret measure, a good recommendation could be deploy more CITS. And then, of course, we also need to share more data. Sharing is caring. And as more private and public stakeholders share, we could trigger investments on both sides. And this is my final slide. To conclude, this is a key investment area for Europe. It supports all of the EU Green Deal objectives. Of course, it links very closely to the Sustainable and Smart Mobility strategy. And increasingly, it is part of our digital sovereignty and competitiveness agenda. Of course, public investment is still needed at this stage. Also, EU funds will continue supporting developments and deployment of CITS. But we also hope to see deployment beyond CEF starting soon. There are some member states that have already started. And we know also that, for example, the European Investment Bank is willing to fund CITS projects. Of course, when we talk about automated vehicles and the investment and the business model there, I think there it is not fully clear yet. Of course, the new partnership can help. But it will also there, we will need to align the efforts from both industry and public sector to make this happen as quickly and efficiently as possible. With that, I thank you for your attention, and I look forward to the other presentations.
Excellent, Gert. Thank you so much. I have a question regarding, you talked about scale, and then you talked previously on end users. Is there a correlance from your part on scaling and the trust for the end user?
I think that the scale, the trust is a conditio sine qua non. Everybody needs to have full trust in the system. But the reason I emphasize the scale element is because it starts with one user. You add a second, you add a third. Of course, in the beginning, we know that the efficiency of the system is relatively low. But as more people join, then suddenly it scales up. And as soon as you have, let's say, about 10% of the fleet equipped, you have real tangible differences. and the system becomes very effective, we start saving lives, we start making traffic flows more smooth. So we really need that scale. It is not a linear evolution, but we still need to ramp up, and I'm confident that I mean, we've studied this already in 2014. We did a cost-benefit analysis, and we concluded that for every euro invested in CITS, we gain back at least 3 euros overall. And as you reach that phase where it starts the efficiency starts to really grow, it goes up to even 6 euros for every euro invested.
There's a question in the chat. Do you foresee a link between CITS and the taxonomy regulation?
Oof, that is something that we still need to look into. You should imagine that, of course, the smart and sustainable mobility strategy highlighted a lot of initiatives, but a lot of those are still in the concept phase. So indeed, I didn't touch on that. The time was limited. Indeed, there is another flagship that I didn't touch on, which includes the taxonomy. There are many other initiatives that I didn't talk about today, and many of which are linked. But of course, a lot of this is also ongoing.
Okay. Most cars are in the cities. What are your priorities, cities or intercity?
Both. I think that when we say that we want to have a smarter mobility system, then we cannot limit ourselves to one environment. So what we do recognize is that we will likely have more specialized solutions. So you have different problems, but also different possibilities, different opportunities, whether you are in a city environment, whether you are in intercity, or whether you're in rural or suburban areas. And I think we need to tackle all of those. The challenges might be different, the timeline might be different, but in the end, we need to tackle all of those, because the goal has to be that we offer high quality door-to-door mobility for all citizens.
Final question from the chat before we move on to the next speaker. Are there any estimates on necessary bandwidth and processing requirements for different numbers of cars? Sorry.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that question. So
yeah, are there any estimates on necessary bandwidth and processing requirements for a different number of cars?
I'm assuming that refers to spectrum bandwidth. As you may know,
that's what I'm also assuming. Maybe Jon Leivdal, do you want to elaborate more on that question? But maybe, yeah.
Maybe I can already start trying answering. As you may have also seen, the Commission recently updated the regulation specifically for CITS spectrum, and that is good news for everybody, because in the past we had 30 megahertz really reserved for CITS, and there was another 20 megahertz that was the so-called extended spectrum, but that has now been integrated, so we now have the full 50 megahertz, and we also made it clear how that works between road ITS or road CITS and urban rail. And now we also recognize, of course, that as ever more, I don't think it's a question of the number of vehicles equipped, but the number of services that we plan to integrate. Now, as those multiply, and for example, the platooning example, I haven't talked about that, but there's a big project going on there as well. Now, when such services come online, we will indeed have a lot more messages exchanged between all the vehicles, and at some point, we will have to look at how we can deal with all those services as efficiently as possible.
Excellent. Thank you, Gert. We will hear a little bit more after the break from you. So please stay tuned. Any other questions you have on the chat that you feel that should be replied, and we will answer them. So don't worry. So keep coming with those questions on the chat. Next speaker is Martin Bø. I would like you to welcome you, Martin, for today, and please share your presentation. I hope Martin was here. There you are. If you unmute yourself.
So.
Excellent.
Good morning. I'm still a little bit struggling with the presentation.
We can see it. It's not in presentation mode yet, but we can.
I really need to apologize. It's terrible because the computer is changing its settings. However, yeah, I would like to present you the current status of CITS deployments all across Europe. I hope you have it now in presentation mode.
We have it with your notes. This is the thing for the rest of you. We always do some testing beforehand and the general testing, and it worked. So this is what happens sometimes, and we all learn to live with it. So
now you have it in presentation. Still
we
not.
do. Excellent. We have it in presentation mode, Martin. Please.
Okay, then it's perfectly fine. Yeah, so sorry for that. You know, technology not always works as it should work and as we expect. And exactly therefore, and Gerd made a perfect introduction, exactly therefore we started the Xerox initiative. Large-scale testing of CITS, that's is really important, and it's an important issue. And by saying that, you know, and all of us know that we were really working on CITS now almost 15 years. And there was a step when we said, okay, CITS, it works. In principle, it works. But how can we make the next step towards deployment, knowing that we have had different initiatives all across Europe? If we are going to France with Scope, if we are going to the Nordic countries with Nordic Way, if we're looking on the CITS corridor, there was hardly any harmonization in between. And therefore, it was really necessary to make the next step towards harmonization. And what we did, in fact, is the foundation of the Xerox platform, and that was created 2016 by 8 founding members. 1 year later, in 2017, additional 8 member states contributed and participated in the Xerox platform, and here also the Nordic countries, including Norway, stepped in. And 1 year later, end of 2018 and formally by 2019, additional 2 countries entered the Xerox community. That means that Xerox, there is a common commitment towards harmonized deployments and also the setup of specifications. And it's not only done within Europe, there's also a huge visibility outside of Europe. So we have associated members starting with Israel, Turkey, Russia, but even from Australia and New Zealand, they are associated members of the platform. And that's really important because what we are doing, there is a commitment of all those countries, including the associated members. If they deploy CITS, then they will follow the general principles set up by the Xerox platform. A next important step, and that also goes towards one of the questions raised beforehand, is CITS is also going towards cities. So in 2019, we also started working closer with cities, and we have currently 43 European states starting with first deployments on CITS services. And we promised also towards the European Commission that by end of last year, 6,000 kilometers of European road sections will be equipped with CITS equipment, mainly focusing on short-range communication technologies, so direct communication between the road and the single vehicle. And in addition, that 100,000 kilometers of European roads will be served through long range, through cellular networks with CITS services. What is C-ROADS? What is the C-ROADS platform? What I already said, we are linking all CITS deployments across Europe. Linking CITS deployments means we are aiming for interoperability. We are aiming that a car driving in Italy or Norway or in France will have no difference in receiving its services. And that's really important. We don't aim at isolated proprietary systems, but really setting up a European common understanding on CITS delivery. And this means that we are working on harmonized technical specifications. We know that a lot of standards are out there, but how to interpret and how to use the standards for service delivery, that's one of the core elements of the C-ROADS platform. So we are dealing with the technical specifications. Of course, we are performing cross tests, ensuring and also showing this interoperability. And that's also very important. We are always focusing on communication technologies that's out and available, which is tested, which is proven. And the starting point is here for the short range, the ITS G5, and of course, in addition, all existing cellular networks. You see here on the right side the logic of the C-ROADS platform. The logic is that we have a steering committee. The steering committee is composed by the representatives of the member states. So we have the responsible ministries of the single member states in the steering committee, those that are responsible for operating the pilots, those that are responsible for overlooking the deployments within their member states. Out of those deployments, of course, we gain knowledge. We gain knowledge about what is working, what is not working, where do we need to adapt specifications, where do we need to continue to work on. So out of those pilots, the working groups are composed. We have experts coming from all member states contributing to the work of our working groups, for example, on working on this commonly agreed technical specifications. And these the results of the working groups, the specifications, for example, are afterwards committed and approved by the steering committee. That means, vice versa, they are again used for their deployments. This is a kind of cycle we have introduced within C-ROADS. And I think looking on this composition of the C-ROADS platform with all European or almost all European member states involved, we really see this is also reflected in the composition of the working groups. The chairing of the single working groups is really splitted between different countries, between different regions of Europe, which is very important. So CITS, it's nothing what is just driven by the Nordics or by France or by Germany, by single countries. No, it's something what we are doing together. And the starting point for setting up the C-ROADS platform was in 2016, the European CITS strategy. There it was clearly laid down and described what the European Commission is expecting from the European member states. If we deploy CITS services, there you can see this day one CITS service list. And looking on this list, there is a huge responsibility towards road operators to serve drivers, to serve vehicles with respective messages. You can see there as well a day 1.5 CITS service list, which will not one by one be followed. That's going mainly towards the urban environments. When looking to the urban environments and now more and more working also with cities, we see slightly additional priorities, especially when it comes to the integration of public transport, when it comes to safe on-level railway crossings. Yeah, so those are additional services that are already today partly specified, and where we are already again in a deployment phase, and you will see a little bit more on that later on by Jirsi on an example of the city of Brno. And for all these day one CITS services, you can see that we have published specifications. And in many times, it's not the case that we have just one single specification published for a single service or for a single service bundle. Because if you see here other hazardous location notifications, that's not a single specification. It's a bundle of specifications that are public available via the C-ROADS platform. So these communication profiles, we have almost each half year, we have a publication of the newest specifications. Those specifications are not only held and organized by C-ROADS itself, but there is a close cooperation, and you see that from release 1.3 on with the car-to-car communications consortium. We need to ensure whatever we deliver from the infrastructure side is also understood on the vehicle side. So this collaboration between the car industry and the road operators, that's crucial for success, and that's also followed in our work. Of course, we need to make first our thoughts on our side integrated within C-ROADS, but afterwards this interaction with the car industry, that's very key. The specifications are much broader than just looking on the communication profile itself. And you see we have here specifications for both for short range as well as for long range. But we are also dealing, of course, with security. We are also sharing our test plans, our validation concepts. So there is a huge bundle when looking on the specifications, which is public available. And there is also an overview document existing, which explains how to use the specifications, because you can imagine that specifications based on standards, and those are technical specifications, that's really a mess to work through if you want to deploy. So there is a support given. I mentioned several times that we're building on a hybrid communication mix. Hybrid means using whatever communication technology is available and proven will be served. That also counts for upcoming technologies. So you will not see 5G today here, but as soon as 5G is rolled out, we ensure that we will also serve new and upcoming communication channels. But for the moment, that's what we are aiming for. And what's very important for us is that if we are providing messages, if we are providing services from the infrastructure side into the vehicle, that those need to complement each other. So that we have no diverse messages coming via long range or coming via short range. And also this is verified via test drives. And I have here a small example coming from the Norwegian Swedish border, where they are performing such tests, where we are performing is the message received via cellular or ITS G5 comparable? Do they complement each other? And you see here, yes, it works out. And that's very important for us, because no one can expect that in future whole Europe is covered with short-range communication. Short range, that's the tool for hotspots. That's the tool for those areas where you really have severe problems. But for the area, cellular is the proper communication channel to be used. Yeah, nobody can expect that in the Alpine region, for example, everything will be equipped with ITS G5. So it will be the combination. And all our C-ROADS members are committed to this combination of communication channels. I already mentioned also the security element. Of course, security, it's a core element. You will learn more about the security elements, so I will not lose too many words on that. But of course, and especially for the infrastructure operators, this setup of a public key infrastructure, that's crucial. And that's important, so that we at the end have trustful messages, which might in future also be able to support automated functions within the vehicle. Gerd already mentioned also the deployment status. There is a European map existing, and I have the link here where you can link towards, which is regularly updated, where you will see on green dots the different short range stations which are currently existing. And by clicking on one of these dots, you will see the status. If it's an installed station, if it's just a test station, where is it located, who is the operator, and you will also have a list of services that are deployed at the single station. Yeah, so there is a lot of information in, more than just the map. The map is seen, and concerning the question, you also can see here that also urban areas are already covered. Up to now, we have almost 1,200 short-range CITS stations deployed. We are working also to make long-range visible via this map, but this will hopefully come soon. What is the outlook? Yeah, continuous procurement. The services are operative, the first ones, and more are to come. And of course, we plan to enlarge with additional cities, with additional member states. We need to strengthen the existing cooperations. We need to work on new services, especially in an urban context. And last but not least, I also would like to mention on 4th of June, we will have our CITS roadshow. An invitation will follow soon. And happy to see you there as well. Then you can learn more what has been done in the surrounding of C-roads. Thank you very much.
Excellent, Martin. Thank you so much for your thoughts and insights. We have quite a few questions in the chat. I will let you know that we are gathering all the questions as well, that the ones that we're not able to answer or have time to answer right now, we will post them afterwards as well, and we will have answers to all of your questions, because it's quite important. If we invite people to ask questions, there's also expectation to answer them. There were quite a few here, but I will jump into one of them here. That was what is the 100K target, 100K kilometer target based on deployment of connected infrastructure supporting cellular CIT services, availability of data?
What the target is, or how? In fact, 100,000 kilometers of road network are served with services. If you're driving along those road stretches, you have the possibility to receive CITS services via long range, via cellular communications. And we know, especially in the Nordic countries with Norway, Sweden, Finland, you have a long history there. And there we already achieved this milestone. In addition, we see also long-range deployments in France, for example, in UK, all over Europe, in Spain, very important to mention. And there are also plans in other countries like Austria, where I am from. So that's good. Showable, and as said, hopefully by mid of this year we will have also a map indicating those roads where CITS services are available as well via long range.
There's a question here on using whatever technologies that are available. When will you add LTE-V2X direct to your list? When will you consider it proven?
Yeah, we see that the first test equipment is now, for example, in Italy available. There, the C-roads partners are also starting to evaluating and to testing this technology, looking also on on the single elements concerning accessibility. Looking on the technical parameters, there is currently a test phase for the first half year of this year, and we are happy to learn more about that. And if it's proven, and if we have here the specific regulations in place, then for sure V2X will be added to that list.
Excellent, Martin. We'll come back to some of the questions. You can probably see them in the chat as well, Martin. If you feel free to answer them as well. There,
yeah, I will go through.
Thank you. Excellent. That was Martin with the view from the road operators. Now we will hear from Thomas Biele, who will talk about the view from the car makers. Thomas, you are feel free to share your presentation and welcome. Just unmute and then we're good to go.
Yeah. Good morning.
Good morning.
So I will go through a short presentation to introduce you in the world of the cooperative safety. So what does CITS have to do with safety in the traffic environment? So to start, so since I'm in charge for VW in the vehicle safety department, I would like to explain you the major motivation of us is to improve the road safety, and our major concern is at the moment that we see that we have not so much reduction of the fatalities on the road as we would like to see. So it's more or less stable over the last years. And it becomes maybe also more and more complicated to have a real big impact on the road safety, since we have many aspects like the human factors, which making it more and more complicated. And since the traffic at all is increasing, we need new kinds of mechanism to improve that situation. And that is more or less the major motivation why CITS and why the communication aspect by VW is located in the vehicle safety department. So we started in maybe the 1990s with passive safety, and the goal is to reduce the impact of an accident for the human body. Maybe a decade later, the active safety systems are included as well, and we try to avoid accidents by using cameras or radars, or if we are not able to avoid that, we try to reduce as much as velocity and force as possible. And the new system and the new area we introduced with the Golf 8 and with the introduction of CITS is cooperative safety, and we add again a functionality which does the same as the reduction of the impact, and we try to inform and warn like the active safety system, but we enable cooperation between the different road users like cars, pedestrians, cyclists, and also including the road infrastructure by spelling one speech. So everyone is able to understand what the other is telling and can react on that what we have. And that's a new phase which is very important to improve the road safety. To sort that a little bit, because when we're talking about Car2X or V2X or CITS, that the terms are more or less the same. It's important to have a clear understanding why we are differentiating between long range and short range, because it's not the same, and it's not the same service at the end. So take an example. So when we are talking about traffic jam, for example, provided by backends or whatever, usually it's an information which is used in the infotainment or whatever to show the driver that there is an accident or there is a traffic jam, and you have a rough estimation of the length of the traffic jam and where it is, and probably also the velocity. But that's not safety when your car is more 2 or 3 kilometers far away from a traffic jam. So it's nice to know, but it's not safety relevant. So it becomes safety relevant when you're really close to the end of the traffic jam. So safety is every time related to your real environment. So it's close and near to your current situation. And it's in the exact situation and the time where you are. So it's more or less real time. So, and that's the reason why when I talk about safety, I'm focusing here on the direct communication approach. So take that as CITS, direct communication or whatever. And here we having applications which have a huge impact by warning, informing, or even reacting on information from road infrastructure or from other cars. And yeah, and that is more or less up to 5 to 15 seconds around the car. So if you're driving with high velocity, the communication range is higher. But if you're driving lower, it will become less. And it's not that important because the communication range of that kind of technologies are already today far than enough for realizing those kind of applications. So when you're considering of providing services, it's important to have that in mind to deal with that. What would be the customer do? So if it's a safety application, I need to fulfill really more or less than the highest requirements of data quality, low latency of those data to get real-time information. And I need to ensure that I have absolutely more or less to 100% the communication technology available. If that is not possible to realize, you cannot create a safety application, and you need to have more or less an information or comfort oriented application. Like mentioned before, what we have already provided by more or less many manufacturers by cellular systems. And the direct communication has also the advantage for everyone that the communication partners have the availability all over the time. If two partners come together, they are able to communicate. They are also able to communicate in several years, since we are not dependent on any infrastructure which is built out on the road, or we do not need to have coverage. And on the other hand, the customers have no communication costs for that kind of communication over lifetime, which is very important to serve all customers and have no discrimination in that. So just having a brief overview, what is the benefit? I will not go through the whole list, but there's a huge benefit by considering the direct communication within the car. That's something like a new sensor for us. So we have the possibilities to look around the corner, which is more or less here on the picture. You have the possibilities to add or to get more information that other sensors are maybe not able to provide, like the weight of another car, or what is the intention of other cars. So maybe they are going to brake until they have a still stand situation, or the traffic light is going to switch to new phase, which is provided by communication, and is very, very helpful, since that kind of camera not provide. You can just observe what is at the moment, but you cannot predict into the future. With V2X, we can predict, or we can provide that prediction to the others. And in the future, the whole major goal of also within the cities is to having collective perception, which means we use the radar and the camera data from the others, from other cars, from road infrastructure, from sensors which are maybe on sensitive areas on the road, available to improve active safety systems. And that's one of the major benefits of the V2X technology. So what is available today? So at the moment, in the European market, VW introduced the ITS G5 technology, so CITS, based on the European specifications and based on the C roads, harmonized standards with car-to-car, into the Golf 8. We started in 2019 already as a series line. So every Golf which is shipped out to the European market is is already in the baseline equipped with that, free of charge for the customer. And the new upcoming cars like the ID3 and ID4, of course, also include that technology to make that available to all kind of customers. And as you see in the bottom, so we had a lot of applications which are already mentioned by Martin Böhm before, which is more or less the day one application set. So we are able to inform and warn for traffic jams, for stationary vehicles. So in that situation, you trigger the hazard light, for example, and open the door. In that second or millisecond, your environment is informed, and that's helped a lot on critical situation. We inform also for critical situations where a car might have not the control or get loss of control. Active systems are working like pre-crash, or you have a very, very hard braking maneuver. That is something where in that millisecond we are able to inform our local environment. And also the already mentioned emergency warning is available, and the CITS corridor project, which equipped, for example, roadworks trailer, are already included into our products to enable the first CITS services. Yeah, coming to the end, but by the smart introduction of what is our major goal from a vehicle manufacturer. Yeah, we want to improve the cooperation, to improve road safety, to enable a better traffic flow and all that benefit we aim for CITS. So therefore, our goal for the other competitor and manufacturers, feel free to join and make the community broader and more safe than we have that. For the road infrastructure, road operator, and all partners on that side, I welcome everyone to invest and equip the road with intelligent road infrastructure. And for Gerd, of course, please keep moving within DG Move to improve our stable legal environment and our conditions we have already. I guess we have a lot of success factors already available and achieved together. So let's move forward on that. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Thomas. Very interesting and highlighting that. I see that the chat is burning, so it's very good. Burning in the sense of it's very good that you're engaging yourself, and I guess it keeps our speakers also busy. Thomas, there's a question here. Besides your group, W, which other car manufacturers have concrete plans for offering cars with CITS capability? Do you know that, and by when?
So it's interesting to ask in manufacturer at which point in time another manufacturer will have launched products. So I'm not in charge for answering the question for other ones. So what I can do is that we have a very close cooperation with a lot of partners within the car-to-car communication consortium. There are a lot of OEMs available since the Euro NCAP is did nominate us for Euro NCAP Advanced Prize, so that was a huge honor for us. And they showed the whole community that they appreciate that new approach. There are a lot of partners also within Euro NCAP, like Renault or Hyundai or Toyota, which are really active in involving the technology, and therefore I assume there are partners which are already in the road for joining us.
Mm. There is a question here that I think you can answer. It's does it work in tunnels? What you just presented.
Yeah, for a time it is possible to work also in tunnels. So time synchronization is necessary, but for a longer time, it is possible to keep that. Also, we are able to have some time of that reckoning mechanism. So if GPS is not available, it's for a longer time, no problem. But under certain or after a certain time, of course, there's no value anymore, because as I mentioned, we need really precise data to inform very precisely the customer has to do, and if that is not available anymore, and I guess the specification is about 40 meters, something like that, then we will stop sending. But for small tunnels, it's not an issue.
A final question before we move on to the next speaker. Is Car2X available in every EU country now? Is Car2X also generating warnings that are feeding the SRTI framework set up in the data for road safety?
No, it's not. We are separating the V2X functionality which I provided, which is purely between the cars, and we are not providing those kind of data to the backend. So if that is required, we will have additional applications in the car which have additional impact on the GDPR and how we handle that. But so far we have quite confident mechanisms for protecting the data of our customers, and we will not mix up that.
That's an interesting point, and I think that could also elaborate more in the discussion in the chat field, because this is quite a lot about the hybrid communication here in the chat. So thank you, Thomas, for your time, and please stay if you have the time to answer some of the questions on the chat as well. We heard now from Thomas from the automotive, the car maker side. We will hear now from the authority side, and Jiri, you are here. Hello, and good morning or good day. Please share your presentation.
I think you should see it now. So
excellent, thank you.
My name is Jiří Stratil from Renské komunikace, road operator company here in Brno. I will start with a short introduction where we are and what we are. We are second largest city in Czech Republic with university students and other short-term occupants, bringing us to 500,000 people, and you can find us about 100 kilometers north from Vienna and Bratislava. So far, we had 2 stages of CITS deployment. Few of them are. I'm sorry. Few deployment stages are finished, some still running, and some are being prepared. Foundations for CITS were done by C-Roads Czech Republic, part of international C-Roads platform that Martin Bem already presented. 2 stages of C-Roads took part in our area. One of them on motorways around the city, and second, more important for us, in the urban area itself. C-Roads in urban area deployed 31 roadside units designed to transmit messages around most important intersections on the inner ring road, and also on connections to motorway in the south part of the city. Also, we deployed 10 onboard units in our road maintenance vehicles and 1 in emergency vehicle for testing purposes. For a central management system, we created a back office for creating messages and monitoring of our roadside units operations. The system as a whole supports many different use cases like general dangerous location, bad weather condition, traffic jams, roadworks, traffic light state. Driver can also be warned about imminent red light violation or emergency vehicles nearby. All messages are shown with direction and distance to the event. So, for example, searching from where the emergency vehicle is coming should no longer be necessary. And also, we deployed emergency vehicle prioritization on traffic lights Parallel to C-Roads project, our public transport operator had a big project called RIS2, focused on public transport management system replacement. Its tender was won by a company that offered to use CITS for public transport preference. So they received a very large fleet of 750 vehicles and also 90 roadside units with very simple software in them, which demonstrates the modularity of CITS. You only pick use cases that are important for you. You don't need, if you don't need the rest, then you don't need to deploy it. And for us, RIS2 meant that we had to add public transport preference to our use cases, to our roadside units deployed from C-Roads Czech Republic. C-Roads results indicate that even few major intersections with emergency vehicle prioritization can reduce the response time by a minute or two on average. So, I mean, a minute might not sound like much, but according to our fire brigade, it is often difference between life and death. As a secondary effect, we are hoping that CITS might reduce the number of emergency vehicles accidents and improve availability and reliability of help for people in need of it. For those reasons, Fire Brigade decided to purchase 15 additional units for themselves. So in every emergency situation, there should be one CITS equipped vehicle, creating a corridor for a whole group. And also few slow and heavy vehicles like cisterns or ladders received their onboard units. So even if they are trailing behind the main group, they are still prioritized, still can enjoy empty road without blocking traffic or stuff like that. So why I'm sharing all that? I want to show you that for our city, it's not CITS is not really something for the future. It's something that is already here, that we are using, we are relying on it, and it's really useful for us. It's helping to provide better public transport, to make it more competitive, and also it's helping to save some lives with with emergency vehicle prioritization. And also we started cooperation between a few important organizations in our city. So we now drive each other forward. What is done by one enables others to do something more, something useful. So as I have already said, when public transport company deployed their system, we had to add another use case to our project. Our emergency vehicle prioritization was received very well by Fire Brigade, so they bought more units with their own money. Their fleet of emergency vehicles became large enough for a public transport company operator to consider adding emergency vehicle approaching use case to their onboard computers to show their drivers that emergency vehicle is coming. And also because there is more emergency vehicles equipped, we are working on deploying more roadside units with emergency vehicle prioritization. So the effects should become more significant, and hopefully we will help to save more lives. And while we are doing that, public transport operator became interested in a set of use cases aimed to public transport safety. For example, they would like to notify drivers about public transport in stops or trams turning right across other vehicles' path. And also, we already attracted some interest from other city companies and car manufacturers that are now looking what we do here, and they would like to join us. I think I don't have time to play videos here, but I recommend you to watch the first link. It's a video from our national test here in Brno. You can see CITS system in operation, and hopefully you will get some better idea of how it operates, what to expect. And if you have some questions, you can contact our team members. There is an email for each of us. I think I'm slowly running out of time, so yes? Yes.
Excellent, Jiri.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.
We will share your presentation, the PDF as well with the recording. Can you just quickly elaborate about the challenges? What was the main challenge between the cooperation?
There is a lot of challenges, definitely. I think the big one was coordination of both parallel projects, Cits Czech Republic and RIS2, because we had at the beginning we did not really know about each other, so we had to work some issues while both projects were already running in quite a late stage. So that was big one. Secondary issues were with different hardware manufacturers understanding some specifications differently. So the units did not really understand each other on the first try every time. So I think some specifications needed to be more precise. I think that should be better in the future.
Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you, Jiri, for your time. Ragnhild Wahl from the Norwegian Public Road Authority Administration. Sorry. You are here and sharing your presentation. Excellent. The floor is yours, Ragnhild.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Ragnhild Beckman, and I work in the Norwegian Public Roads Administration. And I will talk about the EU CCMS from the MPRA's point of view. Our department has started a working group which are looking at the certificate policy and organization and responsibility within the CITS security architecture. Cybersecurity is an important issue in the implementation of CITS services, and as an authority, we want road users to be able to travel safely on our roads. To allow cars to communicate with each other and with the infrastructure, we will have to implement a public key infrastructure using commonly changing certificates. Status of the work. We have identified the needs we have in Norway when it comes to CITS applications and security. And we are now considering various options of organization, roles, and responsibility within the security architecture. Why is this important to us as a road authority? I will give you one example. We conducted a test this autumn in Oslo. We used a self-driving bus that ran a dedicated route in the city center. This bus was notified by the traffic lights when it was green and red. In this experience, we set up a van with an ITSG5 station on the rooftop that sent messages to the self-driving bus. By this, we tried to bypass the bus with the opposite messages to what the bus had already received from the traffic light. As you can see in the picture below, the bus thinks that the traffic light sends a message that it's red at the intersection when in fact it's green. You can see the message on the bus. The bus has gotten in the back side of the bus. It's maybe a bit small, but you can see it in the back window. This shows how easily the messages can be overwritten, and the self-driving bus is taking choices based on this. The test shows how easy it was to change the message the bus was receiving. And with the CITS cybersecurity credential management system, we could have prevented this from happening. As it is written on the slide, we must secure a transport system which upholds confidentiality, integrity, and availability. The privacy must be secured. The information sent and received needs to be correct, and at the same time be available for the user when needed. The security architecture for CITS focuses on roles and permissions and will therefore meet the requirements. In the architecture, there are possibilities both to use the common European certificate authority or additional certificate authority, including a national one. More details about this will be given in the presentations later today. We have been looking at different CITS applications in our working group and discussed the need for national certificate authority. Many of the services are common European applications, day 1 or day 1.5, and we can use the common European certificate authorities. But there will also be some services that needs adoption to Norway, which will demand responsibility from our side, and maybe a national certificate authority. Some of these services are shown in the pictures below. This applies, for example, for electronic traffic regulations, where all the traffic rules are digitalized. We have special needs related to the climate, Nordic weather, and topography, with our fjords, mountains, and narrow roads. An example of a service which needs to be created for Norway is Winter Convoy, and also road user charging on our roads in Norway. That will be a service that also have needs in a special way for Norway. This is just some of the services we are focusing on right now. There will be more in a later stage. In order to get the security architecture in place, there are roles that must be filled and responsibility that must be distributed. To achieve this, we need to cooperate with several authorities within public safety, cybersecurity, communication security, and privacy. To the right in the slide, you can see some of the other authorities which we want to work with when it comes to this subject. And that's, for example, the Norwegian National Security Authority, Norwegian Digitalization Agency, and the Norwegian Directorate for Civil Protection, as an example. So what will be our next step? We want to gather experience and knowledge using the security architecture, and will therefore use pilots, which are already being carried out in Norway, to test this at L0, which is a level meant for test and piloting. This will give us a step-by-step implementation. The levels will be reviewed at a later stage in this webinar as well. And then we will look at how to organize ourselves in Norway to fulfill the roles and responsibilities. It is important that we have acquired knowledge in the field and linked collaboration with all the participants we need to have involved in the architecture. And then the last stage will be to have a full implementation at level 2. And that was all from me. Thank you for listening, and I tried to be quick.
Excellent, Ragnhild. Thank you. It was a good overview, and I'm sure we can come back to more later on. And if anyone has more questions on for you on the chat, but there's one question: have you looked at what does a CITS compliant vehicle do when there's no traffic light signal? For instance, the electricity is gone or other malfunction.
That is a very technical question that probably some other participants in this meeting can come up with a better answer to than me. Maybe Knut Evensen or some other in our working group can answer.
Gert van der Linden was very quick on answering that. He says, what do humans do when there is no electricity? We improvise. If vehicles cannot reliably fall back on traffic signs or traffic rules, they will for quite some time continue to rely on humans to deal with such situations. So we have some good comments and feedback in the chat section. Excellent, Ragnhild. Thank you so much for your time. We will take a very short break just to fill up your coffee cups, because I feel that this discussion needs a little bit coffee fill up. And we will come back with Gert continuing where kind of Ragnhild left. And so we take 5 minutes. That means 23 past 11 will be exactly back. Talk to you soon. Excellent. I hope you had time for some coffee, and we will start with the program again. And please are you still online? I hope so, because I see you were active in the chat field earlier. And you can start preparing to share your presentation and continue talking there where Ragnhild from the NPRA ended.
Yes, good morning again. I will immediately start sharing my presentation. This time I will not have to rush as much because I will be briefer anyway, as we have more technical experts explaining this much better than I will. But nevertheless, I already pointed out in my previous presentation how important it is for CITS to have trust. I also very much like the example we just saw in the previous presentation, showing that indeed without the security credential management system, security risks arise and trust is not ensured, which means that all the benefits that can be generated by CITS will not be generated because those that were still following in the chat, indeed, without trust, messages will be ignored. So the information is not reliable, therefore not used to improve road safety or traffic efficiency. That being said, my screen just went blank. Not sure what happened here.
Maybe if you scroll, if you scroll one down, is that still blank?
It is blank. Wait, I'll quickly maybe open the PowerPoint version of this. 1 second, please.
No problem.
Technology is failing us.
You had a good start, and that's the most important thing. So it looked very good, what you started with. So.
Okay, I'm sure that as soon as it comes online. So I continue. So in the meantime, trust is absolutely important, and that is why this topic has actually been with us since the very start in 2014. When we created the CITS platform and its first phase, already then we had the topic on the agenda. It was also highlighted very much in the 2016 communication. I put the link to that in the chat earlier. And of course, it was repeated in the 2018 communication. Where we also highlighted that we would start this pilot. I referred to that in my previous presentation as well, to indeed make it possible for all road users, that means every vehicle and every road operator or infrastructure owner, to be able to communicate with each other, trust each other, exchange messages in pursuit of road safety. You can see here the documents. I mean, you see screenshots from the two communications I mentioned, and in essence, we developed two documents: a certificate policy and a security policy. Now, as I said, since 2014, these documents have gone through various iterations, and of course, for those that are following this field, they know that you should really have Gerard Menzel presenting this. I'm shamelessly stealing his presentation because he has been driving this work from 2014 up until basically last week. Now, of course, these documents, as I said, they were also part of the delegated regulation that was adopted in 2019, because again, trust is a key element of CITS. And in fact, it is one of the defining elements of CITS. What I mean by that is that we had another example in the chat earlier. For example, smartphones can be used and can also make traffic smarter. That is, of course, very much true. I think many of us use smartphones on a daily basis. albeit for smart routing and similar applications. That is, of course, a very good thing. There is no contradiction with that, but it is not CITS. Quite simply because CITS aims to connect every road user. If I have an app on my phone, I am not connected to any road user. In fact, I am connected to the service provider that gives me routing advice, for example. Again, that is a good thing. It is simply another thing. Now, so I will not go into too much detail. Like I said, following presentations can do this much better. But what we need to have this trust system is that, in essence, you have on the top level, you have a certificate policy authority. So that is basically the body that will continue developing the documents that I referred to earlier. And for this, I have another slide coming on that later, but we have set up an expert group, a subgroup, I should say, of the expert group on ITS. And under that, you have a couple of central roles. There is a single point of contact, and there is a trust list manager. Those two roles are currently taken by the European Commission in a pilot coordinated by the Joint Research Center. And we include in that pilot also an EU root certificate authority, which means that the pilot has the entire system. Everything that we need to operate CITS can be provided by the pilot. But, and this was a choice made early on, we do not want to have this system closed or oblige anybody to use the EU root certificate authority. In fact, an infinite number of root certificate authorities can be added under that, and that is part of what we see here. So whether this is an OEM, whether this is a member state, whether this is a road operator, everybody can choose to operate their own root CA and in fact be added to the trust list. So quickly, the CITS subgroup. So this is a new subgroup that we established, and so basically what this slide is repeating what I just explained. So to operate this pilot, we need to continue evolving the certificate policy and the security policy, and to assist the Commission in doing that, we have set up this subgroup, in which essentially we unite all the stakeholders that are part of the CITS ecosystem, and in other words, the people that need to trust each other. I will not go into a lot of detail here. Basically, what I want, the key message of this slide is that the single point of contact, the website, is launched and is operational since November 2019 already. Of course, this was needed to match our 2019 deployment target. And this is something that we had not foreseen in the beginning, but today, and again, this will be explained in more detail, but in fact, we even support at this point 3 different levels in our trust list. And the difference essentially is that we have a test list, so where people can try out new equipment, new root CAs, etc. We have a level 1, which is to accommodate all the legacy systems. We've seen earlier today that major pre-deployment projects already started in 2014, and to make sure we can integrate them into the latest policy, we have, let's say, call it a waiting room, which is L1, and then we have L2, which is where we expect everybody to be as soon as possible, because that is the full trust system. Every precaution that we have foreseen in the system fully applied and audited. So I cannot repeat it enough. CITS needs trust. And this is between every single road user and all the infrastructure owners. This is why we have this security credential management system exactly to provide that trust. The system is available, it is up and running, and we have 3 levels to support all stations. Again, the Commission pilot covers the whole system, but other root certificate authorities can and have already joined the European Certificate Trust List. And finally, because this is a question we often get, Well, everything I explained so far, the system is fully technology neutral. And it is at the core of the difference between CITS and other systems. That is it for me for this morning. I look forward to more questions in the chat and right now.
Excellent, Gert. I think you have done some good answering in the chat, because it was quite hot at some of the points, and I guess some of the questions also related back to your last point there, the technology neutral, because it is truly that CITS cooperates and works with other technologies.
Absolutely. So this was, I gave the reference to the 2016 communication in the chat as well. And already then we concluded that basically we're wasting a lot of time and energy on discussing which technology is best, because the answer is we need all technologies, and they have distinct features, distinct advantages, distinct disadvantages, and they're very much complementary. So, and that is also why Martin explained that already in the C-Roads platform, we are already using cellular networks and the wireless LAN P today. So because they are two very different things, and it is, we don't have to choose between one or the other. Basically, we want and need both. What I wanted to highlight here is that as far as the credential management system goes, well, that that doesn't even talk about technology. That it simply doesn't enter the equation. However, when we talk about interoperability, when we say that we want to connect all users, one of the preconditions is that all these users trust each other. That's what we are focusing on here now. But the other thing is, of course, that they need to be able to talk to each other, and you cannot do that while ignoring technology completely. It is, if you have a smartphone and I send you a letter, a physical letter, that's not going to work. You cannot receive a physical letter on your smartphone. So we at some point we need to talk technology, but to a large extent it's the wrong discussion, because we need all technologies.
Excellent ending there, Gert. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. And please, if you have the time to still continue helping us on the chat. For the others that didn't receive my message earlier, we will answer the questions in chat and place and post that together with the link of this webinar and the presentations later on. Axel, I hope you're with us and continue talking about the operations of the EU CCMS.
Yes, I am.
Excellent, thank you. Welcome.
Hi, Jenny, you should be able to see my screen now.
I will see it. Excellent. Please.
Okay. Thank you, Jenny. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. So my name is Axel Sandot. I am part of Cits Group, but today I'm talking as a representative of the operator of the Central European PKI. I will explain what this letter means. This is a system that has been just showed by Gert in the previous presentation, and that we operate in the name of the European Commission. So let's see a little more in depth what we call and what is all around this trust that we extensively talked about today. Here we are going to talk about PKI, and PKI is public infrastructure. The public infrastructure is, of course, a software, but it's not only on software, and this is what we are going to start focusing on. Let's start with a few questions first. We talked a lot about trust today, but we did not see exactly how we can guarantee trust. There are many options, many possibilities to guarantee the trust, but at digital level, there is something that has been used for many years now, and we even had questions about that in the chat. How can I guarantee that if I send a message, the others can immediately trust it? It's not just I want to trust it and I want to have the time to verify if it can be trusted or not. No, this must be automated. And if I receive messages, I want also the same. So how can I guarantee trust? I can guarantee trust through the public infrastructure. And the public infrastructure is something that has been used for many years now. You use it, in fact, every day. Each time you connect to a website, each time you connect to a webinar, you are using digital certificates. Maybe you are not aware of this because all this is working quite well in the background. But this is what will guarantee the identities and the trust environment that will be behind the services you are accessing. So it's not just a software. Of course, it's generating digital certificates, but it's also a set of roles, policies, hardware, and software and procedures. And those procedures are the ones that will guarantee the level of trust and security behind the software. So we can have a software, but the trust cannot be at the level that we are expecting. This is very important to implement all the spectrum of good practices to guarantee the security. As I said, it's a traditional foundation of digital trust and identities. You find digital certificates in many things, also in your smart ID cards, eventually, in your health card, in your passports, and so on. The public infrastructure itself is here to create, distribute, and manage the digital certificates that will support the digital identities that will be delivered to some users, so physical users, as you and me, or to machines, edge, IoTs, cars, and so on. And the digital certificates are based on a certificate format that is called X509, which is traditional and that is used in the IT world and in the digital world quite broadly since the years 2000. But when it comes to the CITS public infrastructure, we have to change a little the paradigm, because the X509 certificate, those traditional digital certificates, are not adapted to the CITS needs because they require a high computation power, long delays of treatment, and this, of course, is not compatible with the ability of a car to react in front of unexpected road events, for example. And to be able to do this, well, we need to create a new certificate format that will be dedicated to CITS services, and we will not use it for other topics. This new certificate format has been defined in Europe in the ETSI standard that you have here described on the top right-hand corner, in the ETSI standard 103.097 and 102.940 and 941. Those standards are the ones that define all the security layer that must be implemented to guarantee the trust for European CITS services. You also have other regulations in other parts of the world. You have an IEEE regulation in North America, and you have also regulation that is coming in China, in Korea, and others. But what is very important is that this standardization is putting the PKI, the public infrastructure, at the heart of the security and trust. This is quite clear, I think, now, but not only, it's also the cornerstone of the interoperability. So it means that if I do not implement correctly the PKI and the use of this security layer for CITS services, well, I will not be able to deliver interoperable services with the other users on the field. Quite a very important part. So now let's see what are the key functions of these CITS public infrastructures. The first one is the access control. It's very important to understand that on the field, we will have many different kinds of users. They can be roadside units, we call them stations. So the roadside units, those stations that are on the road infrastructure, are going to send and receive messages. And we also have different cars and vehicles. We can have civilian cars, we can have police cars, fire trucks, ambulances, and so on. And it's obvious that a civilian car may not be able to send the same messages as a police car, for example. So we have permissions inside those digital certificates, and the public infrastructure will make it possible to define, deliver those permissions, and control them. So this is the first access control point that will guarantee trust in the whole overall ecosystem. The second one is authentication and integrity. For the V2X communications, we must guarantee that they can be trusted by the others. And this is related to one of the other questions that I saw in the chat. If a certificate is not valid, should we trust it? Well, no. This is exactly why we define a trust environment, a trust ecosystem between very heterogeneous users. If a digital certificate is not valid, then we cannot authenticate and not guarantee the integrity of the content. And if we cannot, well, we should not take decision based on this message. So another important point. Now, regarding the revocation, it's also very necessary. If I am able to deliver trust and deliver identities, I must be able to revoke them. And this is also a very important point for any PKI, call it CITS or traditional one. We must be able to revoke digital certificates when they are not acting or working as they should. The last point on this slide is related to privacy. This is very specific to CITS services. We do not have that in the traditional PKI. It is the fact that when a user is on the road and is signing digital messages, if I sign all the messages that I sent with my name, Axel Sandot, well, people would be able to track the different messages with my signature and know exactly where I am going and how my journey is evolving during the day. And as we must guarantee that no users will be tracked, the CITS PKI has a pseudonymity system that will separate the real identity of the onboard stations with the digital certificates that will be used to sign the messages on the road so that no users can be tracked on the road. And this is what we are showing here. This is a very simple description of how a PKI is working. On the top, you have a root CA. This is the foundation of the trust. The root CA must be very securely protected. It's offline to guarantee that nobody will have access to this. And this is the root of trust of all what we have in the lower part of this pyramid. Under the root CA, we have two sub-CA that are called Enrollment Authority that will deliver long-term certificates that are called EC, enrollment certificates. Those are the identities of the station. So for example, in my case, it would be like my ID card with my name on it and different information. And on the other side, we have the authorization authority, the AA, that is delivering short-term certificates that are called ATs, the authorization tickets, and that are the pseudonym certificates that I was just talking about earlier. So there is no link possible between the EC and the AT, and this is what guarantees the pseudonymity. On the lower part of the pyramid, we have two different kinds of units or stations. On the road, we have the onboard units inside the vehicles that are moving. Those must be able to sign messages without being tracked. This is why they will use more or less between 60 and 100 ATs per week. And we have the roadside units that are stable, that will not move. So the impact on the pseudonymity is absolutely not the same, of course, and they will only use 1 or 2 certificates per week, more or less. Now, let's see the EU central security elements. Regarding the PKI, we have two different models. We have the Central European PKI, which is the one that was showed by Gert a few minutes ago. This is what we call the internal service. They deliver digital certificate directly to the European users that are willing to get under the trust of the European Central Routier. But we also have external possibilities to use private sub-CAs that will be signed and trusted by the European Routier. I will show you that in a diagram in a few minutes. We have, on the other side, different services because we also have different purposes and more than anything, we have different levels of maturity on the market. And we have those L0, L1, and L2 services. I'm not going into detail again because Gert just talked about that. Just one thing that is important, The L0 service is already open. We have many stakeholders using it. We deliver them directly digital certificates, and they are all under the trust of this L0 Central European Road CA. The L2 service, which is the final one, the goal of all the CITS services, is very specific because it's 100% compliant with the European certification policy. This requires quite a high level of maturity. So on our side, this level 2 is ready. It has been audited by an accredited auditor, external auditor, and is ready to go live. Nevertheless, the maturity level is not there yet, so it's ready but not open to public use. And we have this L1 that is also ready technically. The platform is already on air, but as the rules to access this L1 service are not stabilized yet, and they are defined by the expert group mentioned by Gert, well, it's not open. As soon as those rules will be defined, we will open the L1 service, and the stakeholders who have the required maturity to access this service will have the possibility to ask us for digital certificates. Just briefly, I wanted to show this as a picture because sometimes words are confusing. It's a little technical, but inside the black screen that you have, the black square, sorry, that you have on the screen, you can see on the top the Central Route Authority, and under the Central Route Authority, the two sub-authorities we were talking about, which are the EA and the AA, and they deliver digital certificates to the CITS station that are on the bottom. On the top of this black square, we have the other central elements that are under the responsibility of the European Commission, which are the CPOC, the European Certificate Trust List, and the Trust List Manager. All the route CAs that are willing to guarantee interoperability with the other users on the field must registrate on the eCTL that we have in the pink higher part of the slide. We are only managing what is inside the square, and this is the L0 deployment that is already on air for a few minutes, for a few months. Sorry. Here you have a description on what is going to be delivered for L1 and L2 services. It's exactly the same, and here you have the other option, which is the external PKI with private sub-CAs that can be signed by the route authority to deliver trust also to private PKIs. A few key takeaways here on the screen to finish. Important to mention that Europe is the CITS leader because they have the first continental certified CITS PKI that has been successfully audited. We guarantee for the European Commission trust and security availability for any stakeholder that is requiring certificates. And the European institutions are pulling the ecosystem maturity. The L0 service is ready, and we are soon coming to L1 and L2. And that was it for me.
Excellent, Axel. Thank you so much. I have a quick question here on the chat, and then there's probably one that you can also reply on later. Is there any mechanism at this stage that enables revocation for misbehavior detection?
So if we talk about misbehaving authority, it's under development now. It's a research topic because we have to manage AI implementation and analysis of behaviors of the users and integrate this into the PKI. So this is quite early to be able to do that. We have the possibility to revoke the ECs. Right now, it's possible to do it. And we have then a topic related to the authorization tickets, because as you know, there is a pseudonymization between the EC and the AT. And for this, it's a little more complicated, and we should not break this pseudonymity. But we can revoke the enrollment certificates.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Axel, for your time, and thank you for your questions in the chat to Axel. Axel, maybe you can also reply on that if you see some of them that is relevant. Next in line, we have a Norwegian politician from the Conservative Party, Helge Orten. He was elected to the Parliament of Norway in 2013, and is now the head of the Standing Committee of Transport and Communications. Helge, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I apologize for not being able to follow your seminar from the very beginning, but I followed it from the second half, and I find it kind of very interesting because it's a lot of you point at a lot of the challenges we see in the long-term planning of the Norwegian transportation sector. As you're probably aware of, we are now in the final stages of preparing the National Transportation Plan for the next 12 years, starting from 2022 to 2033. And what we see is that new technology kind of affects almost everything of what we are planning for and what we are preparing for in that plan. So technology will have a huge part of it. Of course, a lot of that plan is also about building infrastructure, but what we see is that new technology also challenges the way we think of building infrastructure, because it's a lot of the things you are working on is can change the way we think about mobility in many respects. So it's quite challenging at the moment to be a politician, but it's very fun, because it creates a lot of opportunities. And my main goal is that we are able to utilize new technology in a good way, also in implementing and building infrastructure, but also what kind of solutions we shall have on top of that infrastructure. So it's quite interesting, and our goal as politicians is to make laws and regulations that are not, should I say, hindering the development, but at the same time making a good foundation for also protecting each people's privacy, and also making sure that new technology can have a great place in the future of transportation. So the one main change, one main challenge I feel right now is that the technology is moving faster than the politicians, meaning that it's quite a challenge for us to be able to prepare laws, regulations, also other types of pilot solutions, whatever, research, development, also everything in preparing for using this technology. When technology is moving perhaps a bit faster than we are able to take in, and then it's quite challenging for us to be able to prepare for the laws and regulations, or be able to facilitate, the good implementation of new technology. But we are doing our best. We are trying to be flexible. We are trying to be technology neutral in what we are doing. We are also trying to be offensive in the or ambitious in the way we look at this. And I like to point at some main issues that I think is kind of or is important for the development in the future. I'm sure you've been talking about that earlier today already. But for the first of all, I mean, we have a great digital access in Norway, meaning that we are able to use technology almost everywhere in a good way, and we need to keep up the speed in implementing the 5G technology. We have to make sure that we have that digital access along the roads, along the railway, and in all parts of the country. And I'm quite confident that what we see now, there is a good competition in actually implementing the 5G technology that I think will be necessary to be able to utilize this new technology. So digital access is important. Perhaps one of the most difficult questions I find is to how we should, what kind of data should we allow to be shared? Because these systems need to talk to each other and understand that sharing data will be a very important part of making this new technology and these systems to work together, and also be able to make the most out of it, so to speak. So sharing data is kind of challenging, because what kind of data should we demand be shared, like traffic data, etc. What kind of data is more competition sensitive in a way that should be unique for the business? Where do sharing data meet the challenges of each individual, each one of us, privacy? What kind of data we would like to share? So I think a lot of this discussion we need to move more into in detail in the near future, because we need to be able to set some standards for what kind of data that should be shared, to be able to utilize all these systems together and to be able to create a good solutions for people, to be able to utilize the technology. We need to have the data available, and that's one of the big challenges as far as I can see, because that touches upon a lot of these privacy issues and also cybersecurity. Each one of us don't like to share too much data, but on the other hand, we actually do it to a great extent, all just by using our smartphones. So it's a challenging topic. But I also like to say that it's important to have these systems work together. I think the benefit of being able to utilize all this technology in the future is to have these systems speak together, and we'll try to should I say, facilitate that through laws and regulations, but at the same time be aware of the privacy issues in it. So I'm quite optimistic, actually. We see that we have set some goals as to moving into zero emission in the transportation sector. It will depend on it depends on what part of the transportation sector, but it varies a little bit how fast it can be implemented. But we see a good development in Norway. I think that what we see in electric cars, for instance, personal vehicles, where we can see that the electric ferries that we have implemented in Norway, we try to use the taxes to promote new technology. We also use the public purchase systems to be able to stimulate developing new technology, be demanding zero emissions or low emissions on public purchases. And we also have this Enova, that it's kind of a good tool for us to stimulate new development of new technology. So all this together I hope we'll be able to actually increase also in the future. But we know that it's much of the same technology, I think, that will give us zero emission, as also will be facilitating new and better solutions for more seamless mobility for people. And it's quite interesting, because I like to say that it's quite challenging to be in transport politics at the moment, but it's never been more fun, because we see this huge potential in new technology. And I think that we need to be perhaps even better in cooperating between industry and government in the way we develop this, because a lot of the laws and regulations and implementation of new technology, development of new technology is in the hand of the industry, and it should be, and we should try to be technology neutral in our in the way we make the laws and regulations, and then be able to utilize the creativity and innovation that is in the industry. And in this cooperation, I think it's also still a huge potential for improving. And you can I think you can look at that as an invitation for further meetings, to be able to talk even better together, to be able to come up with the best solutions, and make sure that politics and laws and regulations is a facilitator, not a hinder for development. And that's my goal. And I think that I really appreciate if we can have a good dialogue on that in the future, because we see that politics and laws and regulations has to develop side by side by the industry to make sure that we don't make things difficult for industry, but actually promotes new technology. But at the same time, I have a special, should I say, eye on each individual's privacy, because we have to protect our privacy in developing these new technologies. But I'm optimistic. I hope that we can also, when we know we see the new national plan for transportation for the next 12 years, I hope that we can, in that as well, be able to facilitate the implementation of new technology, and especially take the benefits from the new technology in developing a better mobility for people in the future. So I thank you very much for all you are doing to develop this technology, because all the innovation and the industry is should I say, where you find the innovation and implementation of the new technology, and we are the facilitators together with yourself to be able to utilize that in the best possible way. So thank you very much. But if there are any questions or anything, I can answer that. But I think it's interesting to see how fast technology moves us as a society forward. So thank you.
Excellent, Helge. Thank you so much for those kind of final words to this webinar. I think what you're pointing down is much the cooperation. And I think for Norway as well, the cooperation between EU and the rest of the industry and the lawmakers and the politicians there is very important and is key, because we have a lot to offer for the rest of the Europe, and the rest of the Europe has a lot to offer for us. So together we can actually go towards a seamless, smart, sustainable and safe mobility. On those words, I'd like to keep time. I think that's important to respect all your time. As said in the beginning, we will add this to our homepage so you can have a look at it afterwards if you didn't have time. We will also answer those questions that we didn't have time to answer on in a Word document that we will also post together with the presentations. We will continue this approach on this thematic, both on the hybrid communication, on the thrust, but also on the law, the politicians, and how do we cooperate closer, because those are thematic approaches that are important. Thank you so much for your time. Have a lovely day and goodbye.